Alright guys, it is that time of the weekend and we are back for some championship predictions. Looking forward to jumping into these. We've got some fascinating games coming up this weekend. Also got some FA Cup action to tackle at the end of the video as well, with 3 championship clubs playing in the FA Cup. But plenty of action to dive into. Want to get your thoughts down below. Without any further ado though, let's jump in. What a game we're starting out with. Blackpool up against Coventry. Blackpool, where on earth did that performance come from in midweek? They went from a really dismal showing against Bristol City, where they offered up virtually nothing in terms of goal threat, to putting 6 goals past QPR in midweek. Now this is going to be a tough game, going up against a Coventry side who are on their second longest unbeaten run in the championship, only second to Burnley. 8 games unbeaten for this Cov side, although I didn't think they were at their sparkling best in midweek. Was another goal for Gyökeres, but to be in that leading position against Wigan and not to go on and win that match was quite disappointing. And just in general, they weren't out there sort of full flow for that one in terms of attacking play and things like that. Blackpool, whether or not they can go ahead and build on that brilliant performance against QPR, time will tell. But putting together back-to-back wins down at the bottom of the championship has been a real rare occurrence throughout the season so far. But even a point for Blackpool in this one I think would represent a decent result. McCarthy, fair play to him, completely changed the personnel and system for that game against QPR and it worked to their advantage. But will Coventry be one step too far in this one? Maybe, and do Blackpool revert to type here? Going to go 2-1 Coventry in that game, but after that Blackpool performance in midweek, they're very unpredictable. Next up then to the Riverside for Middlesbrough up against Preston. Who comes out on top in this one? I actually think that this is a much tougher game to predict now than it would have been a few weeks ago. Preston unbeaten in our last 7, midweek showing. Really quite impressive actually. 2-1 win against Rotherham, but the overall performance, I think it was some of the best stuff we've played in absolutely ages, if I'm honest. Tommy Cannon with another goal. He's on a hot streak at the moment. Ched Evans with a fantastic strike as well. But the player I want to pick out for North End at the moment is Bambo Diaby, who's been absolutely immense for us in recent weeks, playing as the central centre half in a back 3. He's got the better of some of the best forwards in the league, during this unbeaten run. Got the better of Gyökeres when we met Coventry recently, and if there's any centre half in the championship who can stop Chuba Akpom at the moment, maybe it is going to be Bambo Diaby. Middlesbrough obviously looking to get back to winning ways after dropping points in midweek against Stoke. Stoke did quite well actually to grow into that game as it went on, and maybe Preston have got something to offer in this one with the unbeaten run we're on at the moment. My head says Middlesbrough take it, but my heart says that there could be something in this one for Preston with the way we're going at the moment. I may be getting a bit carried away, but I'm going to back us to get a point from this. We beat Middlesbrough earlier on in the season when it was Carrick in charge. I think Carrick's first game actually was against Preston. I'm going to say we'll cause them a bit of concern in this one. 1-1 draw I'm saying, but that might be my heart ruling over my head. After that, for Millwall up against Huddersfield, it was a very important result for Millwall in midweek. We spoke about how crucial this run of games will be for them. Got some quite winnable games in this series of fixtures, and they took advantage of that one against Swansea in midweek. 2 quite quick-fire goals in the end to go ahead and seal that 2-1 win, to go ahead and keep their top 6 hopes really alive for the remainder of the season. Once again, another game at the Den here where they will be going into this one as the overwhelming favourites. Huddersfield had some real struggles on the road so far this season. They've got the worst away record in the entirety of the championship. Of the 18 games they've had on the road this season, they've only accumulated 10 points in that time. With Warnock being in there, you never know if he is capable of crafting out a recipe of success, to go ahead and stifle a manager like Rowett, but I'm not sure I see it in this game. I'm going to back Millwall for back-to-back wins. 1-0 Millwall, I'm saying, in this one with that home advantage. QPR against Birmingham, who bounces back in this one? They both had an absolute disaster in midweek. QPR to a more extent, shipping 6 against Blackpool, but yeah, Birmingham weren't great either, losing 3-0 against Watford. They're both level on points at the moment, 42, 7 points above the relegation zone. Do they each have enough in the bank right now that will get them over the line if they do pick up 1 or 2 results? I mean, the result in this one would be absolutely massive for either side, potentially taking that gap between themselves and the relegation zone to 10 points. I honestly can't believe just how disastrously bad QPR were in that game in midweek. I know that Blackpool spun things around a little bit with their performance, but defensively so. I mean, QPR were woeful, and they were bad at times under Critchley, but not to that level. I really thought that maybe they'd found something of a formula after they went ahead and beat Watford last time, but yeah, straight back down to reality. Does Ainsworth get a response in this one, or does Eustace get a bounce from his players at Birmingham. Out of the two, I think I'd be more inclined to say Birmingham, actually. I think they've been that slight bit more reliable for results recently. And for a prediction in this one, a draw wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to go 2-1 Birmingham. But yeah, that's a tough one to predict after the midweek games. Coming up next for Reading up against Hull. Reading, very unpredictable recently, but on the whole haven't been a great watch under Paul Inton. You'd imagine that Hull would fancy their chances here. Looking at Hull's recent fixtures, they have had a pretty tough run in lately. I think their last 3 games have all been against sides who have been in the top 10, and their fixtures do start to ease off a little bit, especially over these next 2 or so matches, which in their position I think are fairly winnable for where they're at this point in time under a senior. I think for Hull at the moment it's all about sort of building that little bit of momentum and that template for next season when Rossini can really get his feet under the table, you know, full summer recruitment window with him at the helm, and see where they end up next season. In terms of how I see this one going, Reading from time to time can put it on, especially at home, but I think it's Hull who I'm fancying in this one. 1-0 Hull on the road, I'm going between those two. Rotherham against Cardiff has come at a really interesting time of the season, particularly with those sets of midweek results that we got in the Championship, which shook things up a little bit at the bottom of the table, particularly with that bonkers Blackpool result and then putting 6 goals past QPR and maybe showing a little bit of life in them that they can catch up some of the sides above them. Both Rotherham and Cardiff in their horizon at the moment in terms of teams who could potentially drop into that bottom 3, and I mean this is a real 6-pointer here, isn't it? Rotherham, I've actually seen both these sides quite recently, as Preston obviously playing these two. Rotherham not at their best in midweek, defensively so especially. I think that Preston found it a little bit too easy to create things in midfield, find spaces, and in the end I think we could have had more than the 2 goals we scored. They did get a goal and they did have some breaks in open play. What let them down more often than not was their decision making. I think that's also been a template of where Cardiff have been running into some issues recently as well, decision making. For a prediction in this one, I think I'm sort of sitting on the fence for it. Going to go for a 1-1 here, which wouldn't be the worst result in the world for either side. Next then for Stoke up against Norwich. Does Alex Neil get one over on his former employers in this one? We saw him doing the same against Sunderland a couple of weeks ago. I think this game right now from a Norwich perspective is a hell of a lot harder than it would have been a few weeks ago. I think now that Stoke have had some of their January additions properly bedding into their side, we're sort of seeing the template of what Alex Neil wants to get out of this Stoke squad, and dare I say it, maybe a few shades of the side we can expect going into next season, particularly if they do manage to tie down some of those low knees who they've got in that squad at the moment. Really positive result from them in midweek. To come back from a goal behind to get a point against Middlesbrough is no easy feat, and just generally speaking the performances I think have had a lot more consistency to them recently. Midfield I like a lot with that Stoke side at the moment, and I think they will cause this Norwich side some problems. What Norwich do have in them though is goals. I know they have been a little bit fluctuating on that part, but at their best I still think that Norwich are capable of putting 2 or 3 past any side in the league. But with the way Stoke are going at the moment, dare I say it, I think they get a result in this one, you know. Prediction, I'm going 2-1 Stoke. Don't often back against Norwich at the moment, but yeah, going 2 on Stoke in that one. After that for Sunderland up against Luton. A tough game to call, you know. Sunderland sort of in the middle of quite a tough fixture running at the moment. I think including their last 2 games and the next 2 games they've got to come, they'll have played 4 consecutive matches, all against sides who are currently in the top 8 of the Championship. So all sides gunning for promotion are the teams that Sunderland are playing at the moment. But you know, given the level of performances we've got out of that side, you know, barring, you know, a slip up here or there, it speaks to the levels that Sunderland can raise their game to. Luton have been so prolific on the road this season, though the best team on the road this season in the Championship, along with Burnley, and they just seem to be the masters of pulling something out the bag in these types of matches, don't they? For a prediction in this one, the draw wouldn't surprise me, but I think I'm just edging towards Luton for away day speciality. 2-1 Luton, I'm saying, in that game. Next then to Vicarage Road for Watford up against Wigan. A much needed win for Watford in midweek. Finally seeing something from that side and maybe the template of what they could offer for the remainder of the season under Chris Wilder. The problem that Bilic ran into a lot of the time was they get those bounces in, results and performances, but they couldn't really turn that into a consistent run. And if Watford do manage to do that over these next few weeks, it'll massively put them back in the hunt for the top 6. Up against the Wigan side, who Watford are the overwhelming favourites in this one. But to be honest, it was a decent point Wigan picked up in midweek against a good Coventry side, better in terms of the performance. The problem is, in the situation that Wigan are in at the moment, a point doesn't really do them any favours. It's only wins at this point that really goes ahead and claws back some ground on those sides above you. We also have the potential point deduction in the pipeline for Wigan as well, which hasn't been resolved as of recording right now, but with that to come potentially as well. Score prediction in this one, I am going to go 2-0 Watford. Fancy them for that one, I think. As our last championship fixture to go over for the weekend, we've got Swansea against Bristol City. This will be an interesting one. Swansea, it was more misery for them in midweek, really, losing against Millwall. That's now just one win from their last 10 championship matches, and more of the same really. In terms of performances, I think we've seen some subtle improvements recently. We spoke about some positives last time on the championship roundup from that game against Middlesbrough, and once again against Millwall there were plenty of chances. I think they had 19 shots in the end, but what's been their undoing countless times throughout the season and throughout this awful run of form they've been on is individual mistakes, and it cost them again against Millwall. And you just feel like a side like Bristol City, with the quality they've got, the players they've got in midfield in the final third, who will be able to put Swansea under pressure and know when to pounce, with Nigel Pearson going ahead and being the brains behind the operation, just feel as if they will get some joy out of Swansea in those areas. And with how leaky they've been at the back recently, I think Bristol City are the favourites coming into this one. With that being said, I have seen some improvements from Swansea in the overall performances, and I do think that a result will eventually turn their way. Whether or not it's this one, I'm not sure, but I'm going to back them for a point and say 1-1 here, but I'm not massively confident in that. Before we do wrap up today's video, we also have a couple of FA Cup matches which we will go ahead and predict as well, which do involve a championship club, so let's hop into them. I'm personally really looking forward to this one. Man City against Burnley. The fact that it's company against Guardiola, how good Burnley have been in the championship this season, to go up against this Man City squad will be a really interesting test of character. Obviously, we have seen this City side, previously against Bristol City, and I thought Bristol City put in a really good performance. But Burnley will be right up for this one, but I just think City's quality is something else, really, isn't it? I'm going to be fascinated to see how Company and his side do approach this one in terms of how they look to hold on to the ball against this City side, what's their approach of attack. But because it's at the Etihad, I struggle to see past City in this one. Score prediction, going to go 3-1 City. I do fancy Burnley to get a goal at least. And then to finish it off, we also have Blackburn up against Sheffield United, so we are guaranteed to get at least one championship club progressing to the next round, which will be great to see. And do you know what? This is actually a really hard match to call. We spoke on the video earlier in the week about how this could be seen as a sort of positive distraction maybe for Sheffield United away from the league, but going away to Ewood Park is no easy feat, especially when Blackburn are properly up for it and in the mood. And with a cup clash like this, I'm sure they absolutely will be. I can't get my head out of when these sides recently met in the championship, and I thought that Blackburn played that game absolutely perfectly, hit Sheffield United on the counter-attack and then just didn't allow them to build any momentum from that point onwards. It feels like a game from Blackburn's perspective where once again the first goal in this one could be absolutely crucial, and I could really see this one going either way, but my gut feeling is just saying that Blackburn may pull something off in this one. Score prediction here, I'm going to go 1-0 Blackburn again and say it's going to be a repeat of that championship game. But guys, there we have it. That will wrap it up for today's video. Do leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Plenty going on this weekend with both the championship and the FA Cup. If you did go on to enjoy though, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular championship content, and I'll see you all in the next one.